Wellkind families, and welcome to a very special learning series. We are thrilled today to present a financial literacies workshop. And the most exciting part, it's presented by one of our amazing Wellkind dads. And he is here today to share his expertise in the area of finances. And I present to you Matt Craw. We'll be going through this today together, and we really hope that you ask questions so that we can continue this series to meet your needs in the financial arena. Everybody has questions about what to do, how to do it. We hope to cover that today with Matt's experience, and we expect that it will be a great benefit to you all. So here we go. Welcome, Matt.
Hey, Elizabeth, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for doing this. We are so very excited, and we just know that our families are going to get so much from this.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to sharing some of my advice and opinions and learnings here along the way, and hopefully we get some good feedback and questions afterwards, and we can continue the series. So today I thought it would be good to kind of really start at the beginning. Go really basic. And the topic is going to be covering your four walls, which is essentially what's the bare minimum needed in the household before you start worrying about advanced financial savings planning, et cetera. We want to make sure that the essentials are covered. I do have a disclaimer to share. So I'm just a dad who enjoys financial planning and financial expertise. I am not a CPA, I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not a lawyer. So highly recommend, this is just my opinion, my own experience. If you need professional opinions, always recommend, those are kind of my three that I always have. I've got an accountant, I've got a financial advisor, and I've got a lawyer that, are available as I need them. They know who I am. I can pick up the phone and ask them a question, and they're there when you need them. Some of you may know my son Noah here in the picture. He's been with Wellkind since he was 3 months old, so he's going to be 4 in August. So, we love being a part of the Wellkind Center and really appreciate everything that Elizabeth and the team do for Noah. We did just welcome our daughter Abigail at the end of January. So when I created this slide, she wasn't in the picture yet, so I guess we'll have to get an updated picture with the four of us. But so a little bit of background. I did volunteer for this session because I do enjoy sharing with others how not to be afraid of your budget and to gain financial freedom. I wasn't always great with money. I was like most Americans. I had student loans, I had car leases, and if I wanted something, I just put it on a credit card. And that was just kind of the way of doing things, right? That just seemed like that's what everyone does. Everyone has debt, and it's all about the monthly payment. And then when I was getting married, Julia's stepfather kind of sat me down in a very loving way and said, this is stupid. You shouldn't be doing this. And there's a better way. And that kind of opened up my eyes, sparked some interest. And I spend, as my wife says, a lot of time on my phone reading about this stuff. So, happy to be here and share it with you all today. We did send out some surveys about, a few months ago. And we wanted to see, hey, what are families struggling with the most? And it seems like the biggest concerns were, number one, from what I saw in the results were, covering the basic necessities, getting out of debt, and saving for the future. So that's why we thought it'd be good. Let's start with that very first step of covering our essentials. So that brings us to today's session. So when I say protecting your four walls, basically what I'm meaning, these are the 4 essential elements that you need: food, utilities, shelter, and transportation. So we want to make sure that if you are in debt, you're struggling with credit cards, you're struggling with student loans, that all of these 4 get paid first before your unsecured liabilities. And by an unsecured liability, I mean a credit card, I mean a student loan, right? So we want to make sure that we're covering these essentials. And I'm not saying don't pay off your debt. What I'm saying is we need to make sure that these 4 are covered, because without these, it's going to be very, very hard to get by. And we're going to dive into each one of these in the next couple slides here, and hopefully give you a little bit of detail on what I mean by these four. So when I talk about food, right, what do I mean by protecting your four walls and food? Well, I'll give you a big hint here. It doesn't mean eating out, right? Especially while we're in debt. So there's all different kinds of stats out there, but if you look, there's numbers that say that the average household spends about $3,500 a year eating out, and the average American spends about $750 annually on coffee. I know when I go to Starbucks, and I only go to Starbucks when I'm traveling for work, I find it hard to believe that it's only $750, right? Because I mean, a basic coffee these days is $5. But those are some numbers that are really astonishing, right? So if you are eating out a lot, if you are getting Grubhub delivered a lot, that's another one that's just crazy to me. We got some gift certificates for Grubhub, and when our baby was born, which was super handy because it's really hard to cook a meal with a newborn. But the fees and all the add-ons, I mean, it was $90 some for a dinner for me and Julia. So when you think about that, if you do that multiple times a week, these numbers really add up, and that's a really good way to hammer down some of your debt if you're stop eating out. Buy your food, cook your own food. It's tough right now, right? Groceries are probably one of the most expensive things that we have to face. But some stores, like Aldi's, Price Right, Walmart, you could definitely find better deals than you would at maybe shopping at like Price Chopper or Wegmans. Always recommend shopping your sale flyers for the items that you regularly buy and stock up. And I think most importantly is make a shopping list, right? So one of the worst things you can do, and I'm guilty of this myself, is when I do the grocery shopping, it's like, ooh, that looks great, and you just throw it in the cart, and next thing you know, you've got $50 of overages than what you actually need. Another thing that just drives me crazy is not having a plan at all. When I go to visit my family in North Carolina, they've got like a refrigerator full of groceries, but not enough to actually make a meal out of anything. So you either end up wasting a ton of food, or you've got multiple trips a week to the grocery store to make a complete meal and have all the ingredients you need. So, definitely meal plan, make a shopping list, and that'll really help keep you on track with your budget.
Matt, I was going to ask.
Yeah,
I was going to ask because you said the eating out there. And I think a lot of times, and you hit the nail on the head, people don't realize they are not going out to eat in a restaurant. But now the world that we live in, the takeout has overtaken budgets, I think. And so those sneaky costs, like you said, grabbing a coffee here and there, people maybe don't feel like they're eating out because restaurants, they don't want to take their family out and do the whole thing, and they think it's more expensive. But what you said, it's just as expensive sometimes getting Grubhub delivered with the fees and everything else.
Fees, tips, more fees. I mean, I can't believe the fees on that app. It's really it's crazy. So no, but totally agree. And another thing that we'll hopefully get to talk about maybe in another session is if you took that daily cup of coffee that you buy at Starbucks and you were to invest that in either in a retirement account or just even a straight S&P 500, what that could look like in 10, 20, 30 years, right? It's kind of astonishing. And another thing about food, just on a side note, I really like to eat at home. There's so much processed, really not healthy food, right? when you're eating out. It's all fat, sugar, and salt. So by eating at home, there's not only a financial advantage, but there's also a health advantage too. So I don't know, maybe sometime Elizabeth will do a session on that too. But.
Yeah, that sounds good, because that's the long run, right? Because your financial health and your health and wellness are tied closely together.
Yep. Looking at utilities. So, items you want to include in your essentials, and I put this, on two different tables here on the screen. So remember, the goal here is we want to get out of debt, we want to build savings, we want to build wealth, So subscription services are totally luxury items, right? So I wouldn't consider that to be an essential utility. So items that are essentials are obviously your water bill, right? We need running water, we need sewer. Depending on your energy source, you need gas and electric, or at least just electric. Another tip with reducing your electric bill is to get on the PA power switch and shop the rates. You do have to be on top of it, right? So if you pick a rate that's low for maybe 3 or 6 months, you got to put a reminder on your calendar to go in and reshop it in 3 to 6 months. Otherwise, the rates jack up, and any savings you got in that introductory period will be eaten up with the increase. So always keep an eye on that. It does make a difference, especially in the wintertime if you've got electric heat, or in the summertime if you're running air conditioning. You'll see a significant decrease in your bill if you shop those rates.
And can I ask that, how
yeah.
far in advance would you, for example, you said put a notice in your phone to shop it, but if you were going to switch from one to the other because you found a better rate, how much time do you need to do that? Would you give yourself 2 weeks before the date's up, or how often should people be, or how much time should they be giving themselves if they were going to change the rate because they or a provider because they found a supplier because they found a better rate?
Yeah, it really depends. A good question. It really depends on the supplier. They've all got different terms and conditions, and I think PP&L says their standard is 7 days for a turnaround. But I kind of take it a step further, and I usually do go out to 2 weeks because I'd rather cut myself short and get a new provider 2 weeks earlier than take the risk of missing the deadline and then having the rate increase while that transition's happening. But it used to take longer. I feel like in the last year or two, things have gotten a little quicker with PP&L. So I would say if you give yourself, a good 2 business weeks, that should be sufficient time for them to do that cutover.
And you said PA Power Switch, correct?
Yep, papowerswitch.com. You go in and you put your zip code in. And then you want to make sure you click on one that doesn't have like any subscription fee or cancellation fees. There's all kinds of check marks in the filter there. And you can sort by lowest to highest. And then really when you pick a supplier, it's really easy. All you need is your PP&L account number, which will be on your bill from PP&L, and your basic information, name, phone number, address. And the cutover is pretty easy. You don't have to actually go in and it's not like PP&L has to call you to confirm or approve it. It just kind of happens all automatically once you register. Another essential is a phone. So of course we need to have connectivity, especially in the day and age that we live in. So one thing that I would make as a caveat there is that you don't need the latest iPhone every November when it gets released, right? So I would consider that to be more that right side of the screen in the luxury items, and you can get a model that's a year or two old, or if your phone's still working, keep it, right? So I mean, I always joke that I keep my iPhone until it disintegrates in my hand. I don't need to spend $1,000 every year on a new phone. And I know plenty of people that do that. But again, if you're trying to get out of debt, you're trying to build up your savings, you don't need to make Apple stock go up any more than it already is. Another savings tip here with the phone is, consider either getting on a family plan with friends and family, or, consider an alternative service. So one of them that I like as an alternative service, it's very reasonably priced. It runs on AT&T's tower, so you'll have quality reception. Is Pure Talk. Their customer service is fantastic. You can call them. They're U.S. based, and we've had real good luck with them throughout the years. And another item you got to include in your essentials is your trash bill. So depending on where you live, that may or may not be included, but definitely want to make sure all those basic elements are covered. Items again that I wouldn't include in your basics, going back to that monthly phone lease, subscriptions like Hulu, Disney Plus, Spotify, they're really nice to have, but But if we're trying to get out of debt, you know, that $15 a month for each one of those services, you know, that really that adds up. That can be an extra $45 a month on a credit card payment.
Matt, do you ever recommend utilizing, if you were going to do a subscription service, for if it's, you know, a free month or free 2 months? Do you find that as long as you're really disciplined and make sure that you cancel it, you can get some things here and there, which might, you know, be considered a little extra treat or something that doesn't impact your budget? Or is it all just better to just shy away from it because you maybe forget, and if you forget, then it's a big hit to your budget?
Right. So it depends on your, you know, your personality, right? So like I'm really like disciplined with this stuff. Like it's on my calendar, it's a reminder, it's going to go off, I'm going to do it. I know a lot of people that, you know, are very nonchalant about this kind of thing, right? And that's exactly what happened. We just renew, and it's like, oh, it just hit the credit card, it's no big deal. And you know, there's nothing wrong with having that mentality, right? But if that's the type of person you are, I would shy away from the free trials, because you're just going to keep adding to your, you know, your deficit here every month. So shelter, right? So what do I mean by shelter? So covering your monthly rent, or if you're a homeowner, you want to make sure that your mortgage is covered, property taxes are covered, and really importantly, making sure that you've got sufficient homeowner insurance. So good budgeting rule of thumb, when we're trying to calculate, you know, what should our shelter cost be, it shouldn't be any more than 25% of your household take-home pay. So, you know, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average salary in the Scranton area is $24.73 an hour. So for a two-member household, two-income household, that'd be about $6,400 after taxes. So in this scenario, you wouldn't want to be spending more than $1,600 a month on either rent or your mortgage, taxes, and insurance combined. And remember, this is just an average. So there's households that may be more or may be less, but it's, you know, kind of a good middle ground there to see what that average income is in our area, to be able to have an idea of what housing should cost in the Scranton area. And then looking at transportation, so, you know, items you want to include, you know, car payments, and, you know, we'll talk more about that in the future on getting rid of the car payment. You know, I said in the beginning, I did silly things in the past, like lease cars, and that's really not a good financial thing to do. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, hopefully in another session. But, you know, we got to include the price of gas, and we know gas fluctuates, so we might want to have like a little bit of buffer in there, maybe give or take $50 a month for gas, depending on, you know, what happens. You want to make sure vehicle maintenance is included, vehicle repairs, or if you don't own a car and you rely on public transportation, you know, that's also an item to include in our budget. You know, I always say that I, you know, grew up with, you know, I was raised by great people that did stupid things. You know, vehicle maintenance was one of them. You know, growing up, if like the car needed tires or the car needed brakes, you would be like, oh, well, we don't have the $600 to do that, so let's just trade the car in. And it's like, well, okay, when you think about that, instead of spending $600, you probably just lost $10,000 on depreciation of a vehicle. So, you know, that's why I said down the road in a future session, we'll definitely talk more about the car payments and what to do with those. But, you know, items to exclude out of this budget while we're in this phase of really just trying to cover our four walls, you know, gas for a vacation, you know, that doesn't count. That would have to be in a different line item in the budget. Or if you're booking like airline tickets to go on a vacation, right? We wouldn't want to consider that to be a part of this. It's really, again, just covering the bare bones basics of the household. So with that, you know, we can certainly open it up for questions. I have my email here on the screen. feel free to reach out to me if you've got any questions. We'd be happy to be able to help you with anything I can. And certainly, I'm sure if you reached out to the Wellkind team, they can get it over to me as well. And some ideas for future sessions that we have, saving for an emergency, getting out of debt and retirement, and even one that wasn't on this list that we thought might be cool too is kind of just like an insurance coverage checkup. So if any of those topics are of pressing interest to you, feel free to reach out, and we can make sure to get those up on a future session.
Yeah, awesome. I had a question that I'm sure many of our families may have is how do they know when their four walls are covered and they're ready to focus maybe on other areas? Is that when everything is able to be paid for without a strain or stress, and then they have X amount of dollars maybe saved? Is that when you would say their four walls are actually covered, or is it just truly the ability to be able to make all of those payments, every month and not be adding to your debt? Like, how would you classify a person that is doing a great job covering their four walls?
Yeah, that was a great question. So in my opinion, and again, I'm not sure if there's, some professionals may have different opinions on this, but I would say, once you're out of this phase is when you have enough money that you've covered everything, and then there's a little bit left over. So, if you start off, looking at that $6,400, income, that we showed in the example with covering your monthly rent or mortgage, and maybe after paying all your utilities and your transportation costs and your housing costs and your food costs, you've got maybe $400 left over. Well, then at that point we've got some money to work with, and then we can think about throwing that either at extra debt, building up a little bit of a savings account to have that emergency cushion, and then once we've got those steps covered, so now we've got a little bit of an emergency fund, we're out of debt. That's when you can talk about building savings. So I think that those are those are kind of the core elements. And I want to say too, a lot of the responses we got in the surveys were definitely kind of around concern of covering the basics, right? So I don't want anyone to feel like overwhelmed or getting ahead of themselves and thinking like, oh, I don't have a college fund set up, I don't have a retirement set up, I don't have savings set up, right? That's why it's kind of all about like, let's get these basics covered first, and not add to any more debt. And then once we do that, you can slowly start to chip away at the other pieces. So it's never too late to save for college. It's never too late to save for retirement. It's never too late to build an emergency fund. So don't feel overwhelmed. Don't be stressed about money. The goal here is to have your money work for you, and you be comfortable with your income and your financial situation.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of shame, that can reside here in the financial world of just feeling like I'm already too far gone, or this is already just a mountain that I can't climb. And you opened with that, just saying that you understand that you've been through that, you've changed your money identity, and you now can look back and see how worth it was to make those changes. And I'm sure you probably imagined what it would be like if you hadn't. So any words of encouragement to the person that is just either has been ignoring this, as much as possible, and usually that has some pretty difficult circumstances attached to it, but sometimes that overwhelm just takes over. What would you say to that person, even that version of yourself years ago when you felt that way, or were making those decisions? What kind of words would you share about the ability to make that progress?
I would say take it literally one day at a time, and any small change you can make will be for the better. And one of the guys I work with always says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So Don't feel like everything has to happen today. You can start small, continue building, and eventually work your way towards your goals.
That's great advice. And it's probably that consistency, right? Like you said, one step at a time, one bite at a time. And um, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I make a change or try to make a change, you take the steps and then a roadblock appears and it pops out of, something breaks down or an extra expense pops up. Um, how do you
Yeah.
handle those obstacles? And is that just, something that we just need to accept and still move forward? How do we not give up when those things happen?
So I think that's where we'll maybe talk about that in the saving for an emergency session. But there's different data elements out there, right? That the average household can't even cover a $400 emergency. So you run over a nail, right? I mean, a tire's $200 these days. So the idea there is to start small, have a small saving cushion, right? That bare minimum emergency fund. If you can save up $200, $400, $1,000, right? That would be enough to just have that on the back end. That way, if a crisis happens, you've got that money handy. You don't have to throw it on another credit card. You don't have to borrow from Uncle Bobby, right? You can just go to the bank and you got that money covered. And I think that's the key there too, is having a little bit of savings for an emergency before you work on hammering around all the debt. And then once you kill the debt, then you can work on building an even larger emergency fund.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, that starts with having that coffee at home or something like that, right? Because that's where that can be built from. Those $2, $4 extra expenses, they just add up. And before you know it, you're on your way. So thank you so much for sharing your
Yeah.
expertise with us. And I know that this is just very valuable information for our families wherever you are. I think there's always room for improvement. And if you have some parts of this covered, I know that you learned something new. I learned new things. I wrote some notes down of things that I want to look into further, because there's always room for improvement in all areas of our life. So we look forward to future sessions. Please let us know what struck a chord with you. Maybe you need more information on a particular area, or you're looking for a resource, or you're just super excited about learning more, and which of these future sessions is one that really jumps out at you. So please let us know. We are so grateful to have Matt Craw today share his time and his resources with us and his knowledge that he's built over the years. And we look forward to more of these sessions in the future. Thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks, Elizabeth.